Hello everybody, this is Connor, BoatsDon'tSink, here with another Shadowverse Evolve deck profile. Today we're going to be looking at the Tempo Forest deck, upgraded with BP04 cards. Now that Cosmic Mythos is out, this deck, just like Fable Haven, does get some pretty cool upgrades. So, similarly going to be a lot of the same cards we saw last time we looked at the deck, but this is another deck that I think is going to be really strong in the meta, get some really notable upgrades. Is definitely one to keep an eye out for moving into these upcoming regionals. So as always, before we take a look at the deck, this is meant to be a starting point to build off of. It's probably not optimized for any specific meta. You should definitely test it out. There's a lot of different options to play. Figure out which ones you like the most so that you can take the best deck for you into regionals. Here we are. Again, as I said, a lot of the same cards we've seen. Though this one does have, this is like four new cards from BP04. A lot of them are 3-ofs, the really important cards for the deck strategy, so definitely some big notable upgrades. Biggest thing you'll see, there's no more Silverbolt in here, which previously was kind of the deck's namesake. You'd hear a lot of people call it Silverbolt Forest. Now you're going to see a lot of people calling it Elephant Forest. We are still a tempo deck, still the same strategy as normal, but our finisher now, instead of Silverbolt, we are using King Elephant to close the game. But we do also have some other ways to close it out for sure. We have some other sources of storm damage, some other effect damage. We're still just really good at making big followers that can threaten the opponent. Our Evolve deck, pretty widespread. 6 different Evolve cards is a lot. Just one King Elephant, one Tia, kind of our situational cards that we're probably not going to use every game, and then 2 copies of all the things we want to evolve quite often. Looking at the deck's cost curve, it is super low. We have 16 1-drops, 13 2-drops. That is the majority of our deck. And then basically just one card at 3, 4, 5, and 6 each. This deck's strategy is going to be pretty similar to what it was before. If we need to, or ideally rather, we're only spending at most 1 card from hand each turn. So this deck actually has some really strong curves where, you can play a 1-drop, play a 2-drop, play something on 3, whether that's a 3-drop or a 2 that evolves, play something on 4, play something on 5, play something on 6, which obviously like 4, 5, 6 is probably going to be either Rose Gardener or Rose Deer into Cassiopeia into King Elephant, and that might just win you the game. So we can hit some really strong, powerful curves just by playing 1 card a turn. Though we do also, with all the bouncing effects that we've always had in Forest, we can play multiple cards without actually like spending multiple cards from hand, since a lot of these are going to either draw us extra cards or return back to hand or things like that. Follower count 34 spells, which is up like 1 from normal, I guess. Well, I guess it's actually down because we don't have Silverbolt anymore. We're playing an extra bounce spell, and then 6 amulets, which I believe is up, because normally this just plays Harvest Festival. The Fable deck played Woodland Band. We have a new amulet for this deck. That's another thing we want to be bouncing. So yeah, let's take a look at these cards in depth. First up, we have Elfchild May. As always, this card's always going to be a part of Forest. Fanfare, deal 1 damage to an enemy follower. When it returns to hand from field, deal 1 damage to an enemy follower. This is getting slightly less good as more sets come out, because we do see more followers that have 2 defense early, 3 defense early. 3 is a lot harder to answer with this than 2. Things with 4 defense, 3-drop 3/4s get really annoying to answer with this, but it is still really good. It's really powerful on turns where you can like bounce it multiple times with an Ancient Elf, deal like 3 or 4 damage on turn 4 or 5. We have a lot of ways to bounce it. So we have Floral Breeze and Nature's Guidance for 1-drop spells. Ancient Elf and Marvelous Sunday can both bounce it on 2. So if we play Elfchild May on turn 1, we have multiple ways to bounce it on turn 2. Sometimes we can even bounce it and play it back down if we use like Nature's Guidance. It's a pretty good way to clear like a 2-drop and just sort of draw extra cards. And then King Elephant, obviously, we'll be able to bounce it on 6. That's not really super relevant, but it is worth keeping in mind, because if your opponent ever plays like a Bell Ringer or something to just ward up on turn 5 or 6, You can poke it for 1 with the May, and then bounce the May back with King Elephant, and it kills the Bell Ringer, and you get to hit them anyway. Which is neat, something to keep in mind. As I said, though, this card's really going to shine on the turns where you can, where you're like hitting combo counts and playing it and bouncing it multiple times, just to clear out like X3s, X4s, things like that. Our first new card, Sukuna, Brave and Small. This is a 1-drop 1/1. She is small, but she is brave. Evolves for 1. It's the only text on the front side. The evolve evolves into a 2/2. It has Storm, which is pretty interesting. We can just, you know, funnily enough, if you go first, or I'm sorry, if you go second on turn 1, you can actually just play this and evolve it and hit your opponent for 2, which is kind of funny. That's something that no other deck can really do. Quick Blader can hit for 1, but that's about it. Which is, you know, it's neat. You get a Goblin that pokes your opponent. If your opponent doesn't play a 1-drop, you can probably actually do that and it's just fine. Like, it hits them for 2 and it's probably not going to die on the crackback. But where this card really shines is on evolve combo 3, it becomes a 3/3. Combo 5, it becomes a 5/5, and that's really what we're going to be aiming for. Hitting with a 3/3 is pretty good. Hitting with a 5/5 is really good, especially since this only costs 1 to play, 1 to evolve. It means we can do multiple other things during the turn, and then also into the turn by hitting our opponent for 5. It means we can do things like, you know, play an Ancient Elf, bounce something, draw a card, play an Amulet back down, you know, maybe make some tokens, and then also play Sukuna, evolve, and pop our opponent for 5. So this is going to be one of our ways to either just chunk for damage in the mid-game, or kill our opponent. A lot of times on finisher turns, we do have ways to pump this bigger than 5/5 even. So a lot of times this will just be how we close the game out as well. We play 1 copy of Floral Breeze. This is just something I've been testing around with. I'm not sure if this will, you know, stay in my lists super long, but with how many things that we want to be bouncing, or how important bouncing cards back to hand is for this deck, I decided I just wanted to add a 4th spell that could bounce things. Obviously, we have the 3 Nature's Guidances that we'll look at. This is just basically a 4th Nature's Guidance. Not really as much an important tech card. This returns a card from your field to hand and gives your leader +1 defense. Best things we can be bouncing: Elfchild May, Harvest Festival, which draws us cards, and Spring Green Protection, which makes tokens for us. Just helps us build combo count, helps us build kind of card advantage. Floral Breeze is mainly going to be there for combo count, since it doesn't replace itself. You're not really usually actually gaining cards off of it. Best thing you can do is bounce Harvest Festival, which replaces the Floral Breeze but doesn't build your total hand size. But again, it can be good for getting to a 3-card count for Crystalia Tia. Can be good for getting to a 3 or 5 card count for Sukuna. We have a couple other cards that want combo as well, so just a good extra bouncer for that. Nature's Guidance is the main card we want to be bouncing stuff with. 1 cost, return something from your field to hand, draw a card. So that's generally going to be better than gaining 1 defense for leader, just because it's going to help us build our hand size. We do, just like the Silverbolt deck, we still care about our hand size. Even though we're not playing Silverbolt, we have some other cards that want big hand instead. So drawing a card's great. Obviously, bouncing Harvest Festival with this means you get to draw 2, which is how you really want to build hand in the early game. But bouncing things like Spring Green Protection and May can still be really powerful. You can also just use this to bounce cards that have good fanfares that you want to reuse. That's always an option. You can bounce things like Crystalia Tia to make extra 4/4 tokens, or you can bounce Rose Deers to make extra Thorn Bursts. Whatever you really need, it can do for you. We don't have as many finishers that we want to be bouncing, though notably, if you play a Sukuna and hit your opponent with Storm, and then it survives, you can hit them again, Nature's Guidance it, build combo, play it, evolve it again, and hit them 1 more time, which can get you, you know, as much as like 15 damage in 2 turns, which is really good. Takes a bit of setup to get there. Combo 5 2 turns in a row is not super easy, but it is an option, so keep in mind. Our amulets, we have Harvest Festival. This card's always been in Forest, always going to be super good as long as we're bouncing things. 1-drop, we can pay 1, engage it, sack it, give our leader +1 defense. When this leaves the field, draw a card. So that's going to activate from its own effect. It's also going to activate from any of our multitude of ways to bounce it. Common curve you'll see is turn 1 Harvest Festival into turn 2 either Ancient Elf or Marvelous Sunday, or Harvest Festival into Nature's Guidance and then just play the Harvest Festival back down. So it's going to draw you a lot of cards, start building your hand size up, and you don't really have a whole lot of other aggressive things you want to be doing, like on turn 1, turn 2. Gaining 2 life off of Marvelous Sunday is good enough to offset, any attack your opponent has from playing a follower turn 1 or 2. Ancient Elf is going to get big enough that even if our opponent hits us, we can hit them back even harder, most likely. So Harvest Festival is just a great way to start your game off, start building extra hand. It's also really good on the later turns because you can, bounce it for things like King Elephant. You can bounce it just in the middle of all your sort of combo building plays to keep drawing more gas. Spring Green Protection serves a pretty similar purpose to Harvest Festival. The activated ability on this one's going to be pay 1, engage, sack, select a Forest Craft follower on your field, give it +1 defense, combo 3, give it +1 attack. So if we can get the combo count, this will give +1/+1. This is actually really good as a way like mid-combo turn to clear a spot off of your board if you have an extra play point. Since oftentimes one of the issues I run into with this deck, now that we're using some like 1/1 tokens and stuff, you can actually sort of clog your board and not be able to get as many followers out as you want in a turn, especially on like your combo turns. Being able to use this to clear out a spot. The activated ability obviously doesn't count for a combo, so you will just need that to be an extra play point on top, but it can +1/+1 whatever we want to be attacking with. One notable thing here in this deck is a lot of our good like cards that swing in don't actually need combo count on Fanfare. We can play them before we hit the combo count they need, and then hit it afterwards. So being able to play them and then Spring Green Protection to buff them and then keep going on our combo building is really cool. Also has the ability, when this leaves the field, put a Fairy Wisp token into your EX area. So obviously its own effect will activate that. It gives us a 0-cost 1/1. Again, as I said, good for building combo like mid-turn because we can sack this and get an extra card to play for 0. This is also just really good in general as a card to play turn 1. We can bounce it turn 2, start building up 0-cost 1/1s that we can use to sort of just jam a lot of free combo building on later turns. This is also the only way, I believe, Forest has now to Ancient Elf as a 5/5 on turn 2. If you go second, you can play Ancient Elf, bounce Spring Green Protection to become a 3/3, play the Fairy Wisp for 0, Evo point, bounce the Fairy Wisp to go to a 5/5, which is pretty cool. You have to be careful against like Dragon and Rune that might have 5 damage spells on 3, but against decks that aren't going to be able to deal 5 damage on turn 3, it's a pretty good way to just set up really powerful follower. Obviously, we're bouncing this to also get the Wisps. We have all of our normal bounce methods here, same as all the other cards. Ancient Elf, always a staple in Forest. 2-drop 2/2 Ward. Fanfare, return another card on your field to hand. Give this +1/+1. So it means that if we bounce any of our usual suspects or whatever else, this can be a 2-drop 3/3 with Ward. Really good stat line already. And bouncing is obviously progressing our game plan. Evolves for 1 into a 3/3. Also still has Ward, and on evolve, you can return another card on field to owner's hand to give this +1/+1 again. And as I said before, the Fairy Wisps are actually going to enable us to do this on turn 2 if we really want, if the matchup calls for it. Otherwise, we can just keep bouncing the same things we're always bouncing. Making this a 5/5 is really powerful. It has Ward. Oftentimes, you're not going to want to ward it immediately unless your opponent's really threatening you. Leaving an untapped 5/5 on like turn, obviously potentially turn 2, but even like turn 3, leaving an untapped 5/5 is really hard to answer, and a lot of times you can make it even bigger to swing in on the next turn. 2 copies of Crystallia Tia. This is one of the combo payoffs that we already had in the deck from the previous sets. This was in BP02. It's just a 2-drop 1/1 Fanfare combo 3. Summon a Crystallia Eve. That is going to be a 4-drop 4/4. So really good value here. We get 5/5 of stats for 2 as long as we've hit combo 3. You can do that turn 4 pretty consistently, I've found. whether that's by playing a 2-drop and a Fairy Wisp, or by playing like a 1-drop and a 1-drop. You can go, Nature's Guidance, your Harvest Festival, and then play the Harvest Festival back down, and then play Tia, get a 4/4. Things like that, really easy to do. Evolves for 1. On Evolve, select a Crystalia Eve on your field, give it +1/+1 and Rush. So that's just going to make our 4/4 into a 5/5, and our Tia is going to become a 2/2, obviously. This can be really good on turns that you need a lot of removal, since Tia will be able to attack from evolving, and the Eve gets Rush. That's 7/7 of stats that you have to just like push into your opponent's board as removal, or a 7/7 that you can leave untapped and force your opponent to find answers to. You have to be a little careful with this in some matchups. Obviously, Dragon has Conflagrations, going to deal 5 to clear your whole board, and Haven has Humpty Dumpty, which can deal 5 to clear your whole board. So you do have to be careful there, not to overcommit into board wipes. But on early turns, when it's a lot less likely that your opponent's going to want to be playing those board wipes or have the ability to play those board wipes, it's just really good way to pressure life totals. Fashionista Nelcha. This is a new card from set 4. This card is a huge combo payoff. It's going to make a lot of our cards way more threatening. 2-drop 2/3, so already a pretty nice stat line if we just play this on 2. It's often hard to remove a 3 defense follower on 2. A lot of your early effects deal 2 damage. A lot of your early effects that you want to be using to remove a 2-drop at least only deal 2 damage. If your opponent spins a Surefire Bullet on this turn 2, like, you're feeling pretty good about that. It has a combo effect, but this is one of the ones I was mentioning is not a fanfare effect. So we can actually play this turn 2 and then wait to hit our combo 3 on the following turn to still be able to use its ability. Activated ability, you can engage it at combo 3 to choose one of the following. Select a follower on your field, give it +2/+2, or select an enemy follower on the field and give it -2/-2. So this can either act as removal by popping an X2, or just weakening. Say your opponent has a 4/4, you can bump it down to a 2/2, which makes it a lot easier to answer. Makes it a lot easier to finish off with a May, but also just makes it deal less damage to you. Especially cards that are like 2/4s or 2/3s. Even if you can't kill them, making them 0 attack is effectively even better than killing them, because now they don't, like, it's clogging up extra board space for your opponent and they're not dealing damage. But oftentimes we're going to be using this to give one of our other followers +2/+2. This is really good on like Sukuna turns, since neither of them need to hit combo count until we use their abilities, or like, use the evolve or use the activated ability. You can go like play a 1-drop, play a Nelcha, play the Sukuna, then use Nelcha's effect to pump Sukuna, then evolve Sukuna, you get your combo 3. You can become a 5/5 at combo 3. If you're late enough in the game that you can hit combo 5 and have Nelcha on the board, you can be a 7/7 with Storm, which is just fantastic. This can be used with Ancient Elf pretty easily, since Ancient Elf can bounce things to give you combo count, for pretty low cost. Making Ancient Elf a 7/7 is fantastic. It's actually probably pretty reasonable to like turn 1 Spring Green Protection, turn 2 Nelcha, and then turn 3 you can Ancient Elf, bounce Protection, push up the Wisp, play the Spring Green Protection back down, use Nelcha's effect, evolve Ancient Elf, whatever, like just get a ton of value, have a 7/7 on turn 3. Really strong early lines, obviously. This can also pump the Crystalia Eve token, since you have to be combo 3 to get that in play anyway. So just lots of use cases here. Lots of really good use cases. Really powerful card in the deck. Marvelous Sunday, one of our bouncers that we've had since Uma. Really good card, 2-drop 2/3. Again, fantastic stat line for turn 2. Fanfare, return another card on your field to your hand, give your leader +2 defense. The life gain does matter this format. There's a lot of burn damage going around between Haven and Dragon especially. So that life gain is more relevant than it's ever been. And it's a 2-drop that can bounce all of our usual suspects. So not going to spend too long on this one. Just does good bounce things. Tweedledum Tweedledee is a card that we saw added to the deck in BP03. It's a 2-drop 2/2, evolves for 1. On evolve, look at the top 4 cards of your deck, reveal a card that costs 1 from among them, add it to your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. We do obviously have a lot of 1-drops in this deck. This card's just really good early or late, really, but especially early because you want to see your amulets and your bouncers early, and this can help you find whichever one you're missing. It lets you dig through a lot of cards to find them. But it can also find you Sukuna, which is just, you know, obviously good finisher. So playing Tweedledum Tweedledee just to spend extra play points on like turn 4, turn 5 can help us find, you know, a finisher to combo off with on turn 6, turn 7. Which, you know, we really like to see that. Just good consistency card. And it's a 3/3. It's something that we can play on turn 2 and evolve if we go second. It's something that can be our turn 3 if we go first. You can play, you know, turn 1 Harvest Festival, turn 2 Marvelous Sunday, turn 3 Tweedledum evolve, turn 4 Rose Gardener evolve, turn 5 Cassiopeia, turn 6 King Elephant. That's just a really good curve that we have. So it really good cost sort of spot in our curve for what the card does. 3 copies of a Rose Gardener. This is a card that really hasn't seen much play since set 1. When set 2 came out, this was often replaced with Crystalia Lily. When Uma came out, this was often replaced with Ancient Flash. So, a card that hasn't seen a lot of play, but fits into this deck really nicely. 3-drop 3/3 evolves for 1. Evolves into a 4/4. On evolve, return an enemy follower from field to hand. Combo 3, draw a card. So the reason we would want to be playing this in the deck is obviously we can hit combo 3 a lot easier in this deck than the previous iterations, which means that Rose Gardener is going to replace itself in hand, which is really strong for our finishers that want us to have hand size. You can, if you want some of the other options, still play either Ancient Flash, which is going to be a bouncer that doesn't draw a card, but has the same stat lines and doesn't die to Surefire Bullet, which is relevant. It would use carrots instead of an Evo slot, which also means that if you absolutely have to race a Marvelous Sunday, you do get that flexibility. Your other option is Crystalia Lily, which again is going to draw a card probably less frequently, but Lily, Fanfare, you can add a Crystallian or Pixie follower. I believe our only legal targets for that in the deck are Lily herself and Tia, but you might draw one of those. However, the benefit you get from a Lily is you're not bouncing something back to hand, you're bottom decking it, which is going to permanently remove it, hopefully, and you're not going to have to deal with that same card coming down once again, especially if it's a card that you did really want to get rid of, or if it's a card that had a good fanfare. So, lots of options here. We're playing Rose Gardener just because it can keep our hand big, and it's a 4/4, but, like I said, lots of options here. 2 copies of Rose Deer. I was originally on 3 of this, but this is what I cut for the 1 Floral Breeze, just because this card does clog in multiples. But good card. We've been playing this since set 2. It's always been really strong. 4-drop 4/3 Rush. That means it can come down to remove a lot of things just instantly. Fanfare, put a Thornburst token into your EX area, which is going to be the 2-drop spell token. It's just really powerful because it does mean you can play it as 4 damage removal and keep the Thornburst. And so Thornburst, this is effectively putting a card in your hand, which is the Thornburst. Thornburst also draws you a card, so this is 2 cards that replace themselves. So you're getting 2 spells for no hand lost, which is really good for conserving hand like we want to do for our finishers. The Thornburst is also really powerful for combo turns. If this is one of the cards that you're playing to build to your combo 3 or 5 for Sukuna, you're getting a lot of damage, because Thornburst can go face. It's 2-drop spell, select an enemy leader or enemy follower, deal it 3 damage, draw a card. This makes your kill turns significantly more powerful. Alternatively, it can be follower removal for 3 damage, which means that Rose Deer for 6 is, 7 damage of removal, and draws you cards, doesn't cost you any hand in the long run, which is really good. Just overall really powerful card. Just not something we want to have multiples of in the hand at the same time, because we're often not going to have time to play multiples in a game. This deck is relatively fast. Our new 5-drop, this is a legendary from BP04, Cassiopeia. 5-drop 4/5, decent stat line, not fantastic. 5 defense is still a little easier to remove than I would like, but this will stick at least some of the time because it's not engaging the turn it comes down. Fanfare, select any number of enemy followers on the field and deal X damage divided between them. X equals the total number of cards in your hand and EX area. So this is going to count all of our Wisps from Spring Green Protection. This is going to count all of our Thorn Bursts from Rose Deer. And this is going to count everything in our hand. This is often going to deal between minimum 4 damage, usually at least 5. I've very frequently hit between like 6 and 8 on this. And that's usually enough to board wipe someone. If it's not enough to board wipe someone, it's enough to clear at least the things that are threatening you. This can, answer like a 5-5 and a 3-3 in the same turn sometimes, but it's especially really good against decks like, Sword, Abyss, these aggro decks where you're answering a lot of X2s, a lot of X1s, X3s. You can clear 3 or 4 followers at once with this. It's just really solid card to play on turn 5 that gives us positive tempo, leaves a follower on board that your opponent now has to answer or they're taking 4 damage, and is, a 2-for-1, 3-for-1, whatever. Only costs us 1 card from hand. Really powerful card. I originally didn't think I would want more than 2 of this in the deck, but playing 3 feels super important against aggressive decks. Even if you don't need it all the time against the slow decks, it can still be a body that you can put on board that they have to find an answer for. And now, the big guy himself, our new 6-drop, King Elephant. This is a 6-drop 1-1, which is, at first glance going to have you going, alright, what does this do? Why is this a 1-1? It has Storm, so you can play this and hit your opponent for 1. Super powerful, that's why we play it. Best card in the game. Kills the opponent. Fanfare. Select any number of cards on your field, return them to their owner's hands, and give this follower +X +X. X is equal to the number of cards in your hand. So this is why we want a big hand. This is basically Silverbolt, right, where we're dealing damage for the number of cards in our hand. Except this can put our whole board back in our hand first, which makes it way bigger, especially if we have like amulets and stuff sitting around. And it's a big follower. Silverbolt kind of has the downside of if it doesn't kill your opponent, you're leaving yourself very open because you're tapping out for it. Or even if you pass turn to use it at quick timing, it's all you're doing on that turn cycle. King Elephant, if he doesn't kill your opponent, he's still leaving a very big body behind. This guy's pretty easily going to be a 6-6, 7-7, or 8-8. Those are kind of the 3 numbers I would expect the most. 6-6 is probably about as small as he's going to be most of the time. And he can get even bigger. X is the number of cards in your hand, so if you have 6-card hand, you play him, bounce 2 things, he's an 8-8. You can Storm, hit your opponent immediately. That's often how you're just going to kill your opponent, is just play this guy for 6, attack them for 8, and they die. But he can evolve. The evolve costs 4, so this is why we only play 1 copy of the evolve. It's basically only happening turn 9 or 10, or if he lives. But whenever he evolves, the opponent should just be dead. Before we look at the evolve, one thing worth noting, because I've seen people mention this. If you bounce Harvest Festival with this guy, you have to finish resolving his effect before you draw a card off Harvest Festival. So you won't get the extra card in hand from Harvest Festival counting toward his power. So just keep that in mind. He is going to be 1 smaller than what Harvest Festival might have you believe. But when he evolves, he gets the +X again. Which means you will count the Harvest Festival card there, since you've already drawn it. But, alright, say we got +7/+7, right? That made him an 8-8. Well, now he's a 15/15. And he still has Storm. And now he ignores Ward, which means the opponent's just dead. Like, if they don't have Execution, or Acolyte's Light, or Fiery Embrace, I think those are the only 3 cards that just immediately kill something when it attacks. They're dead. This will just always kill them. That's why we only play 1 evolve. You shouldn't, if you need the 2nd evolve, something has gone terribly wrong. This just kills someone. It's our finisher. It's better at killing people than Silverbolt. Does die to interaction, but you can time that. This card's fantastic. Looking at the deck overall as a whole, pros, we can keep a full hand for most of the game. A lot of these cards draw us extra cards, or cantrip in some way, or a lot of times we just only need to play 1 card in a turn because we have a really powerful curve. Your turn 4s, Rose Gardener or Rose Deer, can just be the only card you play. Cassiope can be the only card you play on 5. King Elephant can be the only card you play on 6, which means you're not spending a lot of cards out of hand like some other decks might. And as long as you're drawing some cards in there in the middle, you're going to keep a big hand size. We can also put really big followers out much earlier than most decks. Ancient Elf being a 5/5 on turn 2 or 3. Tia making a 4/4s or 5/5s super early. Nelcha being able to buff things huge. We're just able to get a lot of really big followers that our opponent has to find answers to multiple times. Even if they're able to answer one 5/5, what are the odds they have the answer for the second 5/5, right? And we have multiple sources of storm damage to close out the game. That's between Sukuna and King Elephant, both of which can just chunk the opponent for massive numbers, oftentimes 5-7 plus damage. Combined with Rose Deer having the Thorn Burst for 3 damage every now and then. Really good. However, one of the cons, we don't have as much effect damage as we did before with Silverbolt, so we might need to get through wards sometimes. That is kind of where King Elephant's Evolve comes into play if the opponent does take the game long. And we're pretty reliant on drawing both the bounce targets and bouncers. This has kind of always been an issue with the Forest decks, where you know, if you draw all of your bouncers and none of your Harvest Festivals, they don't do you any good. If you draw all of your Harvest Festivals and no way to bounce them, I mean, you can sack them for their own effect, but they still don't do you a whole lot of good. So, you need to draw the right combination of cards in the right order, and that's kind of why, you know, now we have the 3 extra amulets and Spring Green Protection. We're playing the 10th Bouncer. We're just playing more of both of them to hopefully always draw at least one of each to start getting our strategy going. Some other cards that you can look at, there are a lot of options for this deck, like I mentioned earlier. Fairy Circle. This is a card that hasn't seen much play since set 1. It makes 3 fairy tokens into your EX area, which are 1-cost 1/1s. This card's pretty good at building combo count. They're not the 0-cost tokens like we get off of Spring Green Protection, but being able to get 3 of them, EX area count is going to help your Cassiopeia deal more damage. And then it just gives you a lot of ways to, on later turns, go cool, 1-drop, 1-drop, Sukuna Evo, hit you for 3, things like that, or you can just get multiple 1-drops in a turn. It itself is also a 1-cost spell, so if you use it and play a fairy token on the same turn, that gives you combo 3 on whatever the third card you play is, and you still have 2 more fairies sitting around. Elven Princess Mage is another option for similar reasons. 3-drop 3/3 evolves for 1. On evolve gives you 2 Fairy Wisp tokens. So these are the 0/0s, which obviously more upfront investment in the Elven Princess Mage, but she's a 4/4, and it means that on turn 4 or turn 5, you can actually do really big combo plays with the Fairy Wisps. That can often lead to like a combo 5 Sukuna on turn 4 or 5, can lead to getting like Nelcha to pump either an Ancient Elf or Sukuna, something like that. Some really big strategy plays there. Gold City. This saw a little bit of play in like the Uma format decks. 4-drop 3/3 Fanfare Recover 3 play points. So this is essentially a 1-drop 3/3 that you can't play until turn 4. And as long as you have 8, or as long as there are 8 total cards on field between your field and your opponent's, this gets Storm. That's really iffy on whether it's going to come up. That's really matchup dependent. But against decks like Haven that play a lot of amulets, that might be easier to do than you can think. But again, this is mostly a 1-drop 3/3, which is good for building combo. Just getting a powerful 1-drop follower that you can also bounce if you need to and get your play points back again. It's also really funny if there are enough things for it to get Storm. You can play it, attack your opponent for 3, Nature's Guidance it back, play it again, attack your opponent again sometimes, which is neat. So it's an option if you just want some extra combo builders. It does lead to the big play it used to do in like Uma format was you could get like turn 4, play it for 4, get your 3 play points back, play a 1-drop, play a Tia, make the 4/4, and you have a 1/1 3/3 and 4/4. And if you went second, you have a 2/2 3/3 and 5/5. So really powerful boards kind of out of nowhere. A new option we have, set 4, Beetle Warrior, 3-drop 3/4, good stat line. Fanfare combo 3, get +1/+1 in Storm. So this is just, you know, turn 4, turn 5. If you play a card, play a Wisp, play this. It's a 4/5 with Storm. for pretty low investment. Can be kind of difficult for the opponent to remove. Again, Serpent's Wrath, Witch Bolt, things like that are still going to kill it. But it forces those out of your opponent. A lot of 5 damage stuff isn't quick timing outside of Serpent Wrath. So you're going to be able to chunk your opponent for pretty big amounts and keep followers around that they have to answer. Elf Song. This one's really good if you are playing the cards like Fairy Circle or Elven Princess Mage where you're going wide. I don't think this is very good if you only have like 1 or 2 followers on board, especially since oftentimes if you're doing turns where you go wide and then buff everything, oftentimes you're not attacking with like Storm on those turns, so it gives your opponent a chance to answer them. This summons a fairy token, and then combo 3, give each forest craft follower on your field +1/+1. So it can potentially represent like 5/5 or 6/6 of stats on board. It does just give your opponent the opportunity to Conflagration or Themis' Decree or anything like that on the follow-up, and that can kind of make it feel like wasted resources, especially since you probably put multiple cards into getting that combo count. But if you're going wide with a lot of cheap things like the Fairy Wisps, making your Fairy Wisps all 2/2s can mean you can chunk in for a lot of damage on the next turn. Even making your other followers 3/3s, 4/4s, 5/5s can be good with Eve, where you play Eve, play Tia, get the Eve, Elf Song, buff both of them. You just have to hope your opponent can't answer it. It's probably a very swingy card where it either you get blown out after playing it, or you blow your opponent out because they couldn't find answers. Ivy Spellbomb. So this is Forest's 5 damage removal that we now have. 3 cost spell, deal 5 to an enemy follower. Combo 3, deal 3 to its leader. So this can be effect damage straight to your opponent's face. I think it's a little slow, especially the turns that you would want to be using this to remove like really threatening cards. You're either not going to be able to get the combo count, or it means you're not going to be committing into like your more threatening cards. Your best turns with this are probably going to be where you can go like 1-drop, play a Sukuna, play Ivy Spellbomb, 5 something, 3 the leader, and then evolve Sukuna and hit in for 3 more. Those are probably going to be your best turns with this. I think it's just a little costly, a little awkward to get combo 3 for the real value out of this. And obviously, Silverbolt is still an option. You can still try to find room for like 2 copies of Silverbolt. That way you just have a little more top-end density. If you have both King Elephant and Silverbolt in your deck, it's a lot more cards you can draw to close out the game. You're not going to be stuck in positions where you get your opponent down to 5 or 6 life, and you're like, okay, well, cool, now I just have to find my way to kill them, and I only play 3 elephants, and, I bottomed one of them with a Tweedledum Tweedledee. It just gives you more things to draw, and gives you answers against decks that have a lot of wards. King Elephant, obviously, can ignore ward once he evolves, but on turn 7, turn 8, and turn 9 going first, you're not going to be able to do that. And sometimes that can just be too late, especially if your opponent puts something down like, Heavenly Aegis, gives it ward, and then passes to you. If you can't evolve your King Elephant, that's, what do you do, right? So it can just give you some more answers to stuff like that. Here's the whole deck. As a whole, I think this deck's really good. This deck's really fun to play. I don't think it's a super easy deck to play because there are a lot of lines that you have to know. A lot of figuring out math on, how hard can you commit into bouncing things and going for combo. But a really rewarding deck, really fun, really strong. I think it's going to see a lot of play in the coming BSF regionals. I think it's going to see a lot of success too. And our Evolve deck, obviously. And as always, you can check out the deck log page for this using the code in the bottom right or the link in the description. That'll be 6ZVCQ. And thank you for watching. Again, as always, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what other decks you would like to see, especially from set 4. I know I haven't gotten into any of the new stuff really that was introduced, just kind of upgrades to existing decks so far. Hopefully this weekend I'll be able to get some more testing in and get some really cool lists out for you guys next week. Until then, there should be some videos on the screen that you can watch, and we'll see you next time.